Thank you, Elena. It's a pleasure to be here on this evening. It is, as I tell everyone, my favorite night of the year because of the amount of energy in the room and the amount of promise that you bring to this auditorium. I would like to introduce our platform party, so you know who's on the platform, if you will. You've already met our very special Associate Dean for Admissions and Outreach, Dr. Peterson, who's also a professor of pathology and laboratory medicine, and probably knows each one of you better than anyone, maybe even better than your parents. She really does know you. Also on the podium, as we move down the line, and I will have a few more words to say about Dr. Phil Desai, who's Professor Emeritus of Obstetrics and Gynecology, who will also be our keynote speaker tonight. Dr. Gerald McGuire, who's our Senior Associate Dean of Education and Associate Professor in Psychiatry. Dr. Michael Prislin, who you'll get to know well as Associate Dean of Student Affairs and Professor of Family Medicine. Dr. Shahram Latkapour, who's Associate Dean of the Clinical Science Education and also Professor of Emergency Medicine. Dr. Harry Hagler, who's Associate Dean for Basic Science Education and Professor of Physiology and Biophysics. Dr. Chris Fox, who will entertain you later on, Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Professor of Emergency Medicine. Dr. Martha Sosa Johnson, who's Associate Dean of Diversity and Community Engagement and Professor of Medicine. Dr. Chuck Vega, Professor of Family Medicine and Director of the Program in Medical Education for the Latino Community. Dr. Maria Chandler, who's Associate Professor of Pediatrics and Director of our MD MBA program. Dr. Warren Whiteman, who's Director of Instructional Technologies Group and will also assist me ably tonight, I hope. Dr. Fritz Lin, who's Professor and Acting Chair of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine and will administer the oath to you this evening. Dr. Ramel Berra, President of the University of California Irvine School of Medicine Alumni Association and Professor of Psychiatry. Dr. Joanne Tan, who's the immediate past President of the Orange County Medical Association. Diana Chalukian, who's Co-President of the Associated Medical Student Government, and Jacqueline Haskell, President of the fourth-year medical student class. So they are all here to also welcome you. We're going to continue the program. Before I do, I just want to point out that you've all gotten, I think, if you will, white coat pins with the year 2012. I would ask you to look carefully at it because it has a special detail which will come out later on in the program. And that is, instead of the traditional book in the right pocket and stethoscope in the left pocket, you have an ultrasound transducer in one pocket and an iPad in the other. And with that, I will leave this now to Dr. McGuire, our Senior Associate Dean of Education. Jerry?
Thank you. As your Senior Associate Dean, it is with great honor that I welcome you to the UC Irvine School of Medicine. With the placement of your white coat and the statement of your oath, you will now enter the profession of medicine. Not only is such a tremendous honor for you to wear the white coat, one that you and your family should be especially proud, but it also signifies a duty. The duty that comes with entering the medical profession is that you have begun a process of lifelong learning. In the next few years, your friends and family will ask you, what field of medicine do you intend to practice? Just think of that word, practice. It involves your active participation constantly in the art and science of medicine. Your learning is not just for your own personal growth and achievement, but for the care of your fellow man. Medicine cannot simply be practiced or learned by reading Wikipedia or viewing a YouTube video. It must be experienced with your active participation. Some advice is to work in cooperation with your fellow students and to form friendships and to align yourselves with your faculty as they provide mentorship as you meet these goals. I welcome you to the profession. I'm looking forward to working closely with each and every one of you. And I was with great honor that I introduce our Associate Dean of Student Affairs, Dr. Michael Prislin, who will present on the significance of the white coat ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire. On behalf of the Office of Student Affairs, I want to join in welcoming you, your families, friends, loved ones to UC Irvine on what I think you'll find to be this most auspicious of evenings. Now, students, I want you to just zone out for a couple minutes. I want to talk to the friends, families, and loved ones. Friends, families, and loved ones. Before we go any further this evening, I want to ask you to pause for a moment and consider exactly what your medical student is getting herself or himself into. To paraphrase Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, this is no longer Kansas, and I don't mean that geographically. While many of your students' friends from college have hopefully entered the working world, or maybe they're pursuing master's degrees, your student is entering a period of concentrated study that's going to last 7 to 15 years and is really unlike anything they've experienced before. I would not expect to hear from them all that frequently during the next several years, and when you do, I can pretty much assure you that they'll have absolutely no awareness of what's going on in the real world. And in fact, you may find frequently that they're not all that particularly coherent at all. You may encounter some of your students' friends from high school and college, and you see that they're effortlessly moving into full-fledged adulthood. They're purchasing homes, getting cars, and getting all the cool gadgets that come with modern life. Most of your students will be, and perhaps you also will simply be, accumulating more debt. While those friends will seem to be living their lives freely and largely without a care, your students may tell you that their behavior is going to be held to a higher standard, that they're being subject to greater public scrutiny, that they are being urged to become role models for healthful lifestyles, not only for you, the ones they care for, but for the broader community. And some of your students might not yet feel entirely comfortable with this role. So you might ask, why are your students doing this? Because their fellow human beings are going to literally place their health and their lives in your students' hands, and they expect to be able to absolutely trust your student. And why will your student sacrifice and commitment to this profession be so worthwhile? Because they will be there to witness, aid, and comfort human life at its very beginning, at its very end, and everywhere in between. There is no greater privilege in human endeavor. Okay, students, you can pay attention again. The white coat ceremony is the inspiration of Arnold P. Gold, a pediatric neurologist at Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons. Distressed by what he perceived to be an erosion of humanistic values among medical students as they pursued ever more technologically oriented training, Dr. Gold envisioned the white coat ceremony as an opportunity to provide entering medical students with an initial hands-on bonding experience, orienting them to the values of the profession they are entering. Since the initial white coat ceremony held at Columbia in 1993, the event has spread through the good works of the Arnold P. Gold Foundation to more than 100 allopathic and osteopathic medical schools in the United States and Canada. This year's event here at Irvine marks our 16th such ceremony. Thank you.